So we're going to gather here today in the remembrance of John Gerard Hoersting. And I was just going to take some time to open this with a serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. I spent not enough time kind of like writing something to commemorate, such a momentous life event. But I'm gonna read it. This July 3rd, my father would have been 65. In a true testament to 1950s America, he eventually was accompanied by 9 other siblings, 3 brothers, and 6 sisters. This creation process had spanned a staggering 20 years, and did some simple math, meaning my grandmother was pregnant approximately 40% of 2 decades. That's crazy. His early childhood took place on a cottage on my great-grandfather's property in Lakeside Park, Kentucky, accompanied by many sisters, often pretending that he was a real baby doll. At the age of 2, the family moved to Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. Connie was a few years older than my father. The 2 of them were inseparable, doing typical childhood things, swinging, jumping in leaves, laughing unstoppably at something meaningless because that moment just happens to be everything. Eventually, he made his way to the Buckeye State and played trumpet in both the Princeton and Sycamores high schools. He was completely in love with his first green Ford Fairlane, which I have no idea. Like, Ford has completely stopped manufacturing cars. He attended the University of Cincinnati and was the first member of his family to get a degree from college. And at some point, he met my mom, and they gave birth to me. So, yeah. Well, so it went fast. And then I know that like this stuff is kind of like appropriate, the perfunctory type of commentary to accompany like a memorial service. And it's like the intention's not to be disingenuous, but it's like I entered my dad's life in 1986, so my intimate relationship with anything before then is just other people's recollections. I do, thinking back on like earliest childhood memories, like there was a cabinet I really liked. They would place me into that cabinet. It was a few feet high in our Oakley apartment. I remember requesting to go up there, but most of the time, what I can remember from the past seems like dust, if not entirely incorrect. My dad always had a fondness of the sciences. He wanted to become a geologist, and his curiosity afforded me opportunities to learn. He took me on excursions to search for fossils or arrowheads, and we'd lay beneath the stars and try to find like Ursa Major, which is really easy, but then sometimes Ursa Minor is harder to find, but those are still 2 pretty obvious constellations. He would read to me often like things that were fairly inappropriate for a child of my age, such as Stephen King or whatever. Like I remember a moment too, like very vividly, like when he just like jokingly like attempted to like breastfeed me because I was still nursing, and I just remember like that being very awkward, like and funny because he was laughing at it. It wasn't like I don't know where I had this year, but then I ended up in art school. So like that's it's kind of a funny segue. Okay, I love my dad very much, but it was always accompanied by the very real fear of having my life turn out anything like his. John was cunning, intelligent, and devilishly charismatic if you wanted something. His life's biggest demon was battling addiction. There's a lot of absurdities here that I won't touch on, but any recollection of my father is incomplete without mentioning some shortcomings. He somehow survived crashing into at least 2 houses, 2 telephone poles, and while power sliding down a gravel road with my pregnant mother, had flown off the entrance to a bridge. Wow. Also, there was a period of time the news was calling him the Brick Bandit. He was in and out of my life for some time. When I was living in St. Louis, he was beat with a pipe and ended up in a medically induced coma. I came back on a Greyhound and wept at his bedside. If he died, then he would at least serve as a martyr for what I will not be. Although disturbing, it really helped strengthen my resolve to seek a meaningful solution to my own substance abuse problems that I eventually found after a lot of misery with a community of weirdos. I'm deeply disgusted and grateful that my father spent the last 13 years of his life in nursing homes. Truthfully, it was the safest he had ever been. He lived his insular and removed life gracefully, very matter-of-fact-like. He continued to be well-read and charismatic. He participated in book clubs, was a liaison representing the patient population, and very much, when contrast to his peers, had his wits about him. One day I talked to him about manifolds, which happen to be a topological space that locally resembles Euclidean space near each point. More precisely, each point of an n-dimensional manifold has a neighborhood that is homeomorphic to the Euclidean space of dimension n. When visiting him later, he would always tell me, "My son knows about manifolds," which would warm my heart.
Only a few people got that joke.
Yeah. Please explain, really.
This is a quote from Miguel de Unamuno, and it's from a book called A Tragic Sense of Life. A time will come when this universe and nature itself will be extinguished. And just as the grandest kingdoms and empires of mankind and the marvelous things achieved therein, very famous in their own times, no vestige or memory remains today. So in like manner, of the entire world and of the vicissitudes and calamities of all created things, there will not remain a single trace, but a naked silence and a most profound stillness will fill the immensity of space. And so, before ever it has been uttered or understood, this admirable and fearful secret of universal existence will be obliterated and lost. Okay, thank you. And so now I'd like to take the time I believe my friend has written something to read, and then we are going to open up the mic to share experiences and memories of John, and then we will close with a prayer.
And if you could introduce yourself before you talk.
Oh yeah, my name is Andrew. I was actually just like, I grew up with George, and like I've known him for, since I was a little kid. And like, also because of that, I also knew his father, and like had a lot of crazy, exciting times with his dad, but also just like pretty much crazy most of the time. But yeah, I didn't write like a terribly much amount. A lot of it was said by George, but it just says George and I grew up together, and I spent a lot of time with his dad over the years, and like he always had something to show us, like, which was something that I don't meet a lot of people who are like that. Like even until the very last weeks of his life, it was like almost every single encounter he was showing me like a song on guitar or harmonica or something he was recording or something he was thinking about or doing, and like it just didn't matter. He was always the same person, like living the same life no matter where he was. So it's like, no matter what circumstance he was in, his outlook didn't change. It was always positive. It was always like something passionate, whether it be about music or books or like just anything new, any new information. Like him and George are very like that way, just constantly learning and absorbing new things. And like, yeah, like George said, like kept his wits about him no matter what. And I just feel like that's what I'll remember most about him. Just like, no matter how difficult things got, he always was the same, always finding this positive perspective. And like, I will just carry that with me as well. Like, I'll just think about his perspective, just remaining the same and always staying positive no matter what.
That's good. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Andrew.
And so now, if anyone they'd like to share here today about John.
Hello, everyone. My name is Betsy, and Uncle John was my uncle, my mother's brother. And I remember him very vividly, actually. He and I were very, very close, particularly prior to when he was injured from the unfortunate incident with the pipe. But I did sit there that day in the hospital myself while I was expecting my firstborn child, who's 19, praying over him that he would survive. But as far as memories go, I can tell you my mother and he were extremely close, and he was incredibly intelligent. I don't know that I've ever met somebody quite as intelligent as John. And if you ever want an intriguing conversation that might take you 1 light years away, for which his son is inherited, but to also make you think it was John. But my most fond memories would be of my Uncle John when we were all children, and there were 100 people at my house every year for Christmas, and he would have his guitar, he would play, he was festive, and he would get out that Silver Spurs book that I still have, the original to this day. Every child in the house would surround around him on the floor as he would what's the word I'm looking for? Animatedly, and he was just very animated in a lot that he did, and he would make that book come alive for us. And it was one of my fondest memories of him any time in my life. And I remember many other moments, and I will tell you there was a moment once upon a time that I'll never forget, for which myself and my family were down and out having some issues at our house one evening and needed somewhere close to go after our apartment flooded, and he had my grandparents' former home put together for us, ready for us, had all the bedding, everything I would have needed for my baby ready, and he was there for me in a heartbeat. So even though he may have had his moments and he was a fun guy and sometimes disappointing at times, his heart was huge, and he would have done anything for anybody. And I know he's going to be missed here on this earth, and I know he's now residing with my mother and his parents and his brother and his sister, his other sister. So that's what I'd like to share about John today. Thank you.
Thank you. George, there's Henry's little thing.
So my brother was unable to be with us, so he sent us a recording. I'm going to play that.
Hello. Thank you all for joining us here today for John Hoersting's memorial, which I unfortunately am unable to attend. I just wanted to take a minute to thank everyone for gathering, celebrating his life. There aren't too many things that I can say that you probably don't already know, but to me he was a great man, and I wish he would have had more opportunity. I love him, and I hope he's in a better place. I hope you all have a great day, and sometime I'll see you.
Thanks, Henry.
Thanks, Henry.
I just know that Henry would not be here today. If you can agree with me, Linda, when Henry was born, he was having a medical issue, a blood supply, I think, from his heart to his brain, or.
He was an ECMO baby. His lungs were filled with fluid when he was born.
And John went to called numerous hospitals. There was only a special machine that Henry needed. or he would not be here today. John found one, and he was placed in it, and he lived, or he wouldn't be here today. And I remember a Christmas when Steve had gotten hurt on the job, and we didn't have a penny, and I didn't have any money to give Stephen a Christmas. And your dad went out and got a loan for me, and handed me the money and said, go shopping for Stephen, and never asked for a dime back. That's the kind of man. He was a good man, George. He just had addiction. He had a disease. But I stayed with him. I helped him any way I could, because I loved him unconditionally. And I will miss him terribly.
If anybody else has any memories they'd like to share, if not.
I'm Dennis, and Linda's husband, John's brother-in-law. You know, John taught me a lot. Taught Linda a lot, taught George a lot. I think he's taught everybody that come in contact with him a lot. Some sad, but a big heart. I think we got to take the sad and the negative and turn it into the positive. Because John was always that way. Yeah, he was a con man. We all know that. But it was a good con man. I mean, he was conning the last day me and Linda seen him. I mean, it's okay. But he had a tragedy that he had to live by, and we all had to, you know, suffer along with him. I mean, that's not a good way of going, but he made the best of it. Really, he did.
Yeah, he was sick.
And being grateful. I mean, I've seen him at his worst.
Oh, me too.
Absolutely worst. And he just took it all in stride.
Yes, he did.
But you know, John believed in all the saints. In a lot of ways, I mean, that guy was Catholic. I'm sure he had the last rites. I mean, at the nursing home. But you know, he'd send out those holy cards, and everybody get a holy card from him. I mean, I got a few of them. I mean, I'm not real big in that stuff, but I believe in the saints too. And John's in a better spot. I mean, I'm glad the families always pulled for him, and he always pulled for them. I know I was probably one of the last people to see him alive in that evening, and I just remember, you know, because I didn't think he was going to go that fast, but my intuition was, you know, he's got to let go, and I think that's what my words were that evening. It's like, John, just let go. You know, it's okay. And
He didn't want to go.
yeah,
No.
I mean, he didn't want to let go. I mean, he wanted to live, but at the same time, I think he knew it was time. God was calling.
He knew.
So he's in a good spot. You know, if anything that comes of this, I mean, George is growing up. I mean, Henry's growing up. And they love him. I mean, we all love him. I mean, John gave birth to 2 good boys, so that's a great thing. So he's in a better spot, and I'm just hoping that he connects with me somehow with his saints. Says, hey, Dennis, I graduated from brother-in-law to friend. Thank you.
My mom's husband, he's a real sweetheart. He would always stop and visit Dad often. A real sweet thing. I did have the opportunity of, my last words to him did get to be, "If you die, I love you." So I'm proud of that. If anyone else has any memories they would like to share. It's the time for it.
Come on, Linda. Shut the closet door.
I'm the woman that bore the children. Dennis already stole my brother-in-law line. He would be introduced, I got introduced as, this is the mother of my children, and this is Dennis, my brother-in-law. John was very, I can remember the day I met him. It was in my parents' driveway, 3801 Millsbury Avenue, and we were going to go to a camp out, and he was really a girl that I worked with, her date, but he was picking me up, and then I should have had a clue because he said, "Well, you're going to have to drive because my license is suspended." But yeah, that didn't faze me. I don't know. And we, so I don't know, what happened to. I still worked with the other girl, and I didn't lose. To me, I didn't lose face. I don't know what happened. It's like, I don't know if she was okay with it or not, but anyway, yeah, we started dating pretty much from that time on, and there were he was just charismatic, and I grew up with deaf parents, so it's like when someone is telling me something about myself, boy, I'm listening. It's like he was able to recognize things in me that that I wasn't able to recognize or didn't hear, and he really made a lot of things fun. Now we got misdirected on some things, but that's the nature of alcoholism and drug addiction. But there were just so many things that I had to learn for myself, and fortunately, we had 2 healthy children, and I'm so sorry that he couldn't get the program in time for to have a life on the outside. We'll just say that, But
He tried.
He
tried.
He tried. I know he did. If he was on probation, he had no problem staying sober. And it was just I don't know. It was just one of a big monkey on his back that he could not figure out. But I was so grateful to see. Sometimes I get down and I'm thinking, I can't imagine how much pain John must have been in, and then for him to still want to live. And he, just to the end, on Friday night, Dennis asked him if he wanted morphine, and he did not. He just shook his head no, because he knew that would be his last breath if he started on the morphine. And so I am hopefully taking from that, the appreciation for each and every day, and making the best of life, and appreciating every day, and all the people that are in it. That's all. Anybody else?
Thank you, Linda. I don't need the microphone. I just know that I went and visited John on the 11th. I would visit him regularly at the nursing home, and I went on the 11th, and I didn't think he was in the room because he could no longer sit up. The cancer had destroyed his bones, and he would have to lay his head on his lap. And so I left there that evening in tears, and I prayed that the Lord would take him, and he died on the 18th. So I feel that he's in a better place. You know.
If no one else would like to share memory, I'm just going to close with my father. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I just want to say thank you to everyone who's come out today to show like love and support and remembrance of my father. And so that's meaningful to me. So I appreciate everyone who came. There's a bunch of food out there. So I appreciate if you guys eat as much of it as you can. Thank you.
And the meat's probably cold. So if you want to,
You can microwave it.
heat up your meat or your bowls or whatever you can.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, George. Thanks, George.
Oh, also that the upstairs is like people can walk around upstairs if it's too congested down here. If there's more space. So thank you.
And take a card.
Oh. And then people can take these as well. Yeah, so
As I say, let's eat.
Thanks, Harvey.